Hi, my name is Mary Gooden, and I am a soul-inspired entrepreneur, mentor, and publisher. And I am so excited to share on the Soulful Self-Care Conversations today.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Everybody, welcome. This is Pearl Chiarenza, Women Successful Living, and your host of Soulful Self-Care Conversations. And I'm so excited because we've launched our new name to our new show, and we have a guest from our old show, which we've carried over from Conversations with Pearl to Soulful Self-Care Conversations, because that's truly what we're about, is having those soulful conversations about how we take care of oneself. And I want to welcome back my friend, Mary Gooden. She is an international speaker, best-selling author, mentor, and publisher, and she's the CEO of what she likes to call her brilliant life. She has spent over a decade immersed in self-discovery, spiritual knowledge, mentoring, and sharing purpose-driven stories through her publishing house. And now Mary teaches her clients how to live their unique truth and cultivate a joyful life and business. Welcome back to the show, Mary. And you're part of the new version now of the show.
Hey,
So
thanks, Pearl.
exciting. You're
I'm excited
welcome.
to be here. I mean, I was just so thrilled. I love when things get a vibe up, like changing the podcast, bringing some other guests back on that you enjoyed speaking with. And I just am always excited to be in energy with you, Pearl. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And I know we have a lot to talk about because you've done a lot since we last spoken. And we talked a couple weeks ago about you coming back on the show. And I'm excited to dig into that. I'm excited also to dig into our subject today, which is really about the power of forgiveness and like letting go so we can heal ourselves. And so, but before we do that, I don't know if we did this with you on the last time we were together, but we're going to do this again if we have for our listeners who just a refresher. But one of the things I like to talk about is, you and I've talked in our circles about like healing the inner child, talking to that inner child and that little girl within. But today I want to talk to her from the perspective of when she was little. What did little Mary want to be when she grew up? Like when you look back and think, oh my gosh, when we were kids, I want to grow up and be a teacher. I want to grow up and be an astronaut, the president of the United States. What was that for you, Mary?
Oh, Pearl, you're going to love this because it actually speaks to what I'm going to talk about today. Little Mary just wanted this to live in this frequency of freedom, to be a butterfly, to really choose whatever it is, literally like a kid in a candy store. And I love the candy store. I just wanted essentially, I think I already felt the essence of freedom, but it wasn't this, that, or the other. It was more of a vibration. What do you want to? I want to be free. I want to be free to choose whatever looks like the best piece of candy. I know.
I love that. Whatever feels like the best piece of candy. That's such a great description of life. Like, we have all these different things we can choose from. We have all these different flavors we can choose from. And it's really like ours to choose. Like, I truly believe like our path has already been, decided, like this is what it's going to be, but we get to have the joy of tasting different candies along the way, tasting different flavors and like being that kid in the candy store, as you described it. And like you said, like having the freedom to just, be that butterfly in the world that we want to be. And I love that you like, it never fails. When I ask that question, it always correlates to what we do today. It might be a little bit different. Like for me, I wanted to be a teacher growing up. I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher. I'm just teaching older women in their elementary retirement is how I look at it, or that second act of life, for themselves. And so it's so cool how it all correlates together. And I just love that. So I want to know, let's update everybody. What has Mary been up to since you were last on our show?
Gosh, I can't remember exactly when we did our recording, but I know that I've got 2 solo books out now. I've got both of them. This one's fun. We're going to speak to forgiveness today, and there's some stuff in there about forgiveness. And then I have an affirmations book. Maybe we had this one last time. I've just been writing, and I've been enjoying. I spent 5 weeks in Europe visiting clients. So one of the biggest invitations I felt when I started my publishing house, Divine Destiny Publishing, about 4 years ago, was that creating this global experience I knew, Pearl, that I wanted to create a freedom that I could go meet these people in person one day. And so I got to do a little bit of that this year. I went to Europe for 5 weeks. I went to various locations, Italy, Portugal, Spain, London, like all kinds of places. So I've really been doing a lot of traveling. The last time, really since January. So we were together this January. See, I think it's last, but at Podfest, and I've just been buzzing around in my brilliance and meeting people that I've linked arms with and collaboration partners. And really, what I like to say is just sucking all of the nectar out of this brilliant life.
Sucking the nectar out of the brilliant life. I love that. Like, I'm right, you guys. I always take notes when I'm talking with my guests, so I don't forget to like revisit something they said. But sucking the nectar out of this brilliant life. I'm like writing that down. That might be the title to your show.
Life's a peach, right? It's
Life
a
is a
peach.
beach. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I know you also just did something in Sedona, right?
Yeah, so I've probably hosted 6 retreats this year in Sedona. I did one in Mexico, Reiki and writing retreats, really open-hearted retreats. I work with a lot of, the energetic set points, which is in my new book. There's a whole 7-day experience of going through these different energetic set points. Some of you will know as the chakras. Some of you just like to hear them as the energies in the body. We've launched a lot of books. We just launched another book last week, another solo author, launching what I like to call her brand book, all about her steps, her process, her progress. And we've got another book launch coming up next week. And so there's a lot of book launches coming, and we launched a lot of books. It's just been exciting. I can't always put words or pinpoint. There's just like these new vibrations that I feel like I get to step into that don't quite have a description other than, wow.
I love it. I love it. So, we're talking about books, and then we're going to lead into the subject that we're talking about today. But, I always say, like, I have the honor of coaching at a nonprofit for women that are in between homelessness or leaving domestic violence situations. And it's an amazing nonprofit. It's called the Mary Martha House. If you want information, if you're listening to us, go look it up here in Ruskin, Florida area. But it's called the Mary Martha House. And the really great thing is I tell all the ladies, like, listen, keep a diary of what you're doing. Write down the things you're doing, and like leave a note to the lady that's going to come behind you when you leave that bed, because they're going to be wondering, what's next for me. They're going to be scared about stepping into that new world. They're going to be working on forgiveness in their situations for themselves and their kids. But I always tell you, we all have a story within us, and it's really important. Even if you just publish it just for you, that's published, it's so important to be that published author, because your words can be that legacy for later on, for people to read your story. Maybe somebody in your family comes across your story. I just think it's such a powerful thing. And I'll have to ask you, I've got a friend that's got something you might be able to help her with in publishing world. But tell me, like, thinking about the authors you're working on, like the book you have right now that we're going to lead us into is, the forgiveness part. There's so many things that we go through in our lives, whether, being a parent, trying to be the best parent you can be, being, things around, how your relationships are, and whether, no matter what's going on, like, that the whole power of forgiveness is so powerful. And
Mm.
so let's talk about that, the book you have around forgiveness, and how do we let go of that forgiveness so we can have that self-healing.
So both of my books have a space in there about forgiveness, and really, Pearl, to just let everybody know, publishing is really what helped me get to a deeper level of forgiveness, because sharing my first story in a multi-author book, if you've ever had that experience, or if you haven't, being willing to basically get all of my 25-year forever out, which was a beautiful relationship with my high school sweetheart that ended 25 years later in divorce after 2 children. And it became the story that opened up this portal, this exciting adventure into being a publishing house and to creating a global tribe. And it also cleared even more unforgiveness in my body because I realized the whole experience was a gift so that I had a story to share in this book, so that the last 5.5 years of my life that I've been living and embracing after sharing my first story has been freedom. And that's exactly what I speak to. You can write this down. There's a couple things I'll say, but, um, freedom really does live on the other side of forgiveness. And I have spent the last decade walking through understanding and really creating honor for every experience that I've ever had, which has shifted any unforgiveness to just like, oh my gosh, look at why this happened. What a gift. What a gift. What a gift. But it's easy for us to hold unforgiveness. So I will say that too. We are only human. Hmm.
Yeah, you're right. We're only human, and forgiveness is hard. I mean, it's like I know, like, through my journey, I talk about, the fact that I've divorced my parents. I've had to forgive them, right? I've had to come through that and do that whole forgiveness piece. And even though they'll rear their heads up and try to stir something up again, I just, keep that boundary around it. But being able to forgive them, I mean, some of the things my dad did were really terrible around my son and his race. And so, that forgiveness, I don't forget, but I do forgive, and I don't hold on to it anymore because that's no longer my stuff. That's his stuff that he has to deal with. But I have forgiven him, but it doesn't mean that I have to have him in my life, and I'm one time, this is no kidding. My parents divorced after 43 years of marriage. And I mean, talk about that's a story in there itself. But so I remember my dad did some really horrible things around with my boys, especially my oldest son Matthew. And I remember that I had put these boundaries around him, and I let him back in my life. I forgave him, let him back in, and he started stuff again. I'm like, that's it. It's just not going to happen. You don't get to come three times, the ball game, three strikes you're out kind of thing. And so I remember one time somebody from my family called and said they'd gotten this message out of the blue that he supposedly was in the hospital and, all this stuff. Can I help out? I'm like, okay, fine. I'll make the call for everybody. And so I did that. And we found out he wasn't being honest. It was just attention. It was just trying to get in contact with all of us again. And I remember that when I wrote an obituary to my dad. Like, I literally sat in a driveway of his second wife when I found out what he had done to my son. And I sat there for like 2 hours. She actually came out like, are you okay? And I had a 2.5 hour drive home still. And so it was like 7 o'clock at night. And with what he did, I remember calling my son and saying, I'm so sorry, I did not know. And he's like, Mom, you didn't know. It's not your fault. I'm like, yeah, but I'm your mom. I should have known. That the mama bear protector, right? And so I sat there and I just said to God, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I handle this? What do I do? And all I could get was, you write an obituary that he doesn't have the honor of being called dad anymore. You're still going to love him. You'll forgive him, but he doesn't get the honor of wearing the title dad for you any longer. I'm your father. And I'm like, okay. So I literally sat in my car, and on text message, in my notes section, I wrote this obituary. And then it was called in my heart to send it to my brother, my sister, and my nephews who are adults, and just said, while his physical being is still here, I don't need to know when he no longer is here, because he doesn't have that privilege or honor. And somebody's like, well, if he ever like if he gets really sick, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go visit him. I'm not going to give that honor. I've done what I need to do, and that's, for me, that was setting those boundaries around that behavior. And then, years later, my mom has done some terrible things herself, and, all around trying to take care of her, and really threatening like my family's livelihood, and threatening like my existence. And so I was like, okay, you need to follow that boundary again too. And so I've learned that boundaries are really important. And then on top of that, I've learned I had to forgive them. Otherwise, I will live in this state of, this turmoil. It's like, okay, I will forgive, and then, like, the best thing one of my pastor, Father Bill, told me is like, life, we don't get to pick our parents. Like God picks our parents. We come into this world and they will always be our parents. We'll always love them. But this is your ball game of life. And he literally asked me, Mary, he's like, what's your favorite sport? I'm like, football. He's like, okay, 11 men on a field. That's who's on your team. If they can't be part of the 11, the other 50 some, they sit in the bench. I'm like, okay. And it was such a, metaphor for me. It's like, okay, that's how it's going to be, and years later, before my son passed a couple of years ago, I remember that we got the phone call and, and said that my dad was really, really sick. And so my husband and I talked, we said, we always left it up to our boys if they wanted a relationship with their grandparents or not. And because they've watched everything, they're part of the stuff that happened. And we said, do you want, we will arrange to take you up there to go see your grandfather. And they both said, it was so funny. We were in two separate cars because we were driving to two different places and meeting up as a family for dinner. And I told one in the car, we get to the table and we tell my other one at the table, and they both said, no, they've treated us. He's not treated us the way a grandfather should treat us. So why do we give him the privilege of our presence? I'm like, okay, there you go. There you have it. So I've taught them boundaries too, but still it's that, that forgiveness. It is part of like self-healing and letting go. And, I have learned to let go of it. I've learned to say, that's their stuff now. It's no longer has to be in my world. And this is, even letting go of and forgiving my son for his actions that led to his death, which was drinking and driving. I had to forgive him for that. Yes, you've taken yourself away from us, but I've had to forgive him and let go of what happened and be honored. I mean, I talk about all the time, I'm honored. My husband and I are honored to say we raised him for 25 years. He came into our life as adoption, and we, it was a privilege. And we still, even our son Nate, who's, God bless him, he's still here, and he's actually leaving tomorrow. He'll be back by the time this gets released, but he's on his way to Japan for his honeymoon. Even him, we call it an honor to raise these amazing young men that are out in the world doing beautiful things. And so let's talk about, like, I rambled on there for a second, but let's talk about the forgiveness piece, because it is hard to walk this journey of forgiveness. And what does it look like, right? Because for everybody, I think it looks differently too. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts on much of everything is it's a daily practice. It starts with forgiving yourself. I love the idea, as you said, Pearl, that you wrote an obituary, but a really good invitation is to write a forgiveness letter to yourself for tolerating whatever it is that you tolerated that has broken your spirit. Because most of the time, right, we have a broken spirit, so we harvest unforgiveness, we harvest resentment, we harvest bitterness. And y'all, my little twang's going to come out. These are the lowest vibrations on the planet. Bitterness, shame, guilt, all of those are the lowest vibrations, which are all part of an unforgiving spirit. It really, and I learned that because I was, for every time I would get in that place of resentment, everything would just be yucky. It would be bad. When I went through my divorce, after the contract was broken with the one thing that at 17, when we got married, I apparently said out loud, and I remember, was the only thing that breaks this contract is adultery. And so 22 years later, we ended there was this broken contract, which is fine. The contract was up, sometimes with people that really disrupt our spirit in that way, that create this resentment and this bitterness, which is unforgiveness in the body. It just is the contract's up, and forgiving ourselves for tolerating it for a longer time than maybe we should have. So that's why I always say, start with you. Start with writing a letter to yourself. I forgive you, Mary. I forgive myself for. And this leads into, and it's not a very long poem, but in the solar plexus energy of our body, which is the womb space, the space of creation. In this book, Let It Be Easy, Let It Be Fun, which is unleashing your extraordinary life and business in 21 days. So it's day 15. But it's this forgiveness prayer. And so every morning, I would recite this forgiveness prayer during new moon energy or full moon energy. If anybody listens and they work with energies like that, moon energies, fire ceremonies, things like that. This forgiveness piece was huge because basically our thoughts become our things. Our thoughts also become what we embody. And even to speak to your piece, Pearl, too, like I forgive, but I don't forget. Even if we can come to a place of forgetting, and forgetting still doesn't mean we have to let them back in. Forgetting doesn't mean we somehow release a boundary. Because if we don't forget, there's still a morsel of this idea in our body. So, and that's a deeper step, but forgiveness comes first. And stating that, and I'll give it to you in a minute. It's in the book, but I'm going to give it to you. It's really just a paragraph, but it becomes about that too. Speaking it aloud, saying the word forgiveness for yourself, really starting to tune into to asking yourself, well, what can I forgive today? Even if you don't feel, the anger right then and there or the resentment, changing the dialogue of your self-care conversations. Is there anyone I need to forgive today? Opening up that, because if you believe that you've been here for several lifetimes, not everybody has to believe that. One lifetime is enough. but is there something in my body, in my life that I haven't forgiven? Because, and I'll let you reflect in just a minute, because you know what else lives on the other end of forgiveness? Our most abundant life, because we stop with the barriers and we find ourselves open to receive. Because guess what? There's no concern that something is going to shuffle our feathers. We almost step out of the whole layer of needing to forgive anything. So it does happen. It can happen. I'm proof of that. What do you think so far, Pearl?
No, I love that. I
Well,
wrote that down. Well, let me go back here. I highlighted
yeah,
something. I was like, okay, so I highlighted, write the forgiveness letter. I think that's really powerful. I mean, I never thought about that. I've done letters before, like to, the person, and you burn it and stuff like that. I've done those kind of letters. I've written a letter to my fear before, and that kind of thing. But I love that, write the forgiveness letter to yourself, because that's so powerful. And, I wrote down, start with, I forgive you and I forgive you for, I think that's really you've inspired me to write a forgiveness letter to
yeah,
myself. I'm very excited. And if you're listening to us, if that sounds really cool, write that letter, and in the comments, come back to the show in the comments and tell us how that was for you. I'd love to be able to see
yeah,
that, read it, and share it with Mary as well, especially if you're watching us on YouTube. You can put it in the comments below. But I'm really like, writing that letter is so powerful. But you're right too. Like, I also wrote down, like, forgiveness equals the abundance of life. Because you're so true. I mean, I can tell you, like, just taking my mom, for instance, I'm like, I don't have her blocked because I'm in my conscience. I'm like, well, she's my mom, something happens, I kind of want to know for her. My dad completely blocked. I mean, that relationship is done, I'm good with that. But, there's always that little, like you were talking about, that little hanging fruit, maybe that's there. Right. But, like, ever so often, like, she has me blocked and she has to go through the action of unblocking me to try to ruffle my feathers, which I think is hilarious. It's like, really, what are you getting out of that? Right. So it's like, whatever, but, and, so it's interesting. And like you said, like, that it truly is the abundant life. Like, the forgiveness truly is that abundant life. And, it's like this week, for instance, I have a relative that she's going through some things, and she didn't stay on her journey, and she fell off her journey. So now she's sort of starting the journey over. And this time, for the last, since like July, I've been kind of there for her, supporting her, my husband and I both. And this time I was like, okay, here's the deal. You got a lot of me these last few times because I allowed you to do that, as, as you being the only one. I'm the only one here that's for you, and you're in my state, because we brought her from another state here. So I wanted to be there for her. But now this time it's like, no, I saw the con. I saw the how you pointed the fingers and not taking the responsibility. So now this time, and I've shared it with those that are helping her out of state, these are the days that you get me. These are the, like, I don't even communicate with her because where she's at, I can't communicate with her. But I say to the family, these are the days that I will invest my energy into this person. If it doesn't fit, I don't need to hear nothing. And if I don't respond to you, it's just because my energy is not there for that, right now. And I've been really, really like since like Monday, like really holding true to that. And they're struggling, right? They struggle because they, people want answers right away. They want gratitude right away. They want, confirmation right away. I'm like, nope, this is how it's going to be. And for me, that's allowed me to be, abundantly doing the things I want to do, especially in my business and my personal life, so it's really, really important for me to be doing that. And so it's so true. Forgiveness is the abundance of life.
You also brought something else, a very good point up about, oh, it kind of slipped out. You had a really good point about how,
Boundaries.
well, it is the boundaries, but how you just, it'll circle back. But I do like the forgiveness letter because here's what we will oftentimes realize, most of us will realize, is that you're not, most of your unforgiveness is towards yourself. It's towards thinking that you didn't make the right decision, or you didn't say the right thing, or you're not acting like the right person. And this is why it wanted to circle around, is because the one thing that you reminded us of, Pearl, is when I start changing, when I start forgiving myself, you are going to see other people's around you, especially people closest to you. They're going to be a little bit ruffled because you're changing. And they're feeling that shift. And don't take it personal.
I love it. Don't take it personal. I always tell people that too. I'm like, you know what? The minute you start setting boundaries, people are going to be like, let me break those boundaries. Let me break those barriers. It's like, just let them be. Because if you let them break it, then they win. But if you just let them keep trying to fight and you just keep your focus on what you need to focus on, they're not going to break the boundaries because they know that the boundaries have to do with them. So they're going to try even harder in some cases to break the boundaries. And, you have to stay so true. Because listen, we only have this one opportunity right here, right now to do something with our life that's in front of us right now. We can control right here, right now. And if we, oftentimes we forget that, when we come into this world, there's already a path set for us. And sometimes we think, well, I don't like how that path's going. Let me go over here and do this. No, the energy is already there. You just have to, like, I feel like you'd like dive into it, listen to it, and really be in tune with it. I love Reiki. I like, that's what I love about Reiki. And the releasing too during a Reiki session for me is just so powerful, And I love those opportunities to have that. And one of the things I love about my son when he was here with us is him and I both were sort of empaths together. And it was like, in fact, I get mad at him sometimes when I go visit him at his gravesite. I get mad at him like, you used to say you never saw yourself living past 25. You didn't have to make it happen, because that's what he used to say. Mom, I don't know why. I just have this feeling. I'm like, stop talking like that. I would get mad at him because it's like, no, you don't want to, you want to outlive your kids. Right. So, it was interesting that him and I, and he was always like numbers. He was always about numbers and all that stuff. And so I love that, those are some of the things that for him, like we had that in common, and feeling that energy. I love that we're talking about energy as well and forgiveness. But, let's talk a little bit more about, so you write this forgiveness letter, right? And then, so those that are maybe are struggling, I would love to dive into that a little bit because I know it can be very powerful. So when you do this forgiveness letter, then what?
Then recite it every day. Like, look at it every day. Look at it and ask yourself then, have I forgiven myself? Ask yourself, your body knows. And just pay attention. First day in this new journey, awareness, being aware of yourself. If I'm going to start a practice of forgiveness, if I really want to, now this is a practice. And it can be that specific. If I'm going to start, I'm going to use a diet and reflection here, and you're not doomed to failure. But if I'm going to start something new, I'm going to create a pattern of it. That's why I wrote a 21-day book, right? 21 days to make a shift. But look at it every day and ask yourself, Have I forgiven myself? Why haven't I forgiven myself? Why does this bother me? Why am I holding on to this? That's a lot of questions. One of them will resonate with each of the listeners differently. Start really looking at it, because the deal with forgiveness is it stays in the body because we don't want to look at it. You didn't want to look at how you were going to figure out a pattern to forgive your dad until one day you got tired of being in the unforgiveness. It's no different. But if you can actually pinpoint where you haven't first forgiven yourself, the truth of the matter is, you love the energy, you love the Reiki, you love the truth of the matter is, when I can treat myself the way that I want to see the reflection in the world, I will see that reflection in the world. So again, most forgiveness really doesn't need to happen outside of the body. It needs to happen inside of the body. And then the process of forgiving others outside of our experience, outside of our body, is much easier. Do you know why? It's just like love, because now you know how to do it. You've actually done it for yourself. And this is a self-care, a soulful self-care space for us. If you're not loving yourself, I know you've heard this, you're not really loving anybody else. It's false. It's imposter. Because if you cannot physically come to terms of loving you, you cannot physically, you're not loving somebody. And I challenge anybody to challenge me on that. But if I don't know how to do it for me, I certainly don't know how to do it for somebody else. I'm just pretending, which is why most of our relationships end in some kind of resentful, bitter, angry experience.
Yep.
So it starts with you.
Yeah.
Relationships becomes daily.
Yeah, it has to start with you, because you have to love yourself. It's like, it's like I talk about, the saboteurs and the judges. Our mind is our best friend, our worst enemy, because if we allow it to tell us all the negative thoughts and we believe all the negative thoughts and we become the negative thoughts, right? Yeah. So if we start saying, no, I'm not, when my thoughts come in, I call her Betsy and tell her, Betsy, we're not coming here today, because you're not welcome here today, so, and then I work on the positive side of it. You're right. I mean, when you start work on the inside and you're loving yourself, 100%, I tell you, it's a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different vibration for yourself, because then you show up better for yourself, and then you show up better for others that you want to be around, and it's a whole different way that you can reflect on what's happening in your life, in your world as well.
And every single day, I would say, so the next step, just we can clarify, write the forgiveness letter to yourself and just read it every day for 21 days. Doesn't matter. None of it matters. If anything, just read that forgiveness letter to yourself every day. What am I forgiving? Just read it every day. See what happens, because at the end of the day, if I'm harvesting something, and how do I know? Here's a fun question. How do I know if I'm not forgiving something in my life? You'll see it. Things will be hard. Things will look hard for you. Relationships will be hard for you. Experiences and opportunities will not flow easily to you. Entrepreneurs, tune in. If you're harvesting unforgiveness towards a coach or a mentor or somebody, if you're blaming somebody else for your inability to generate success for yourself and you're holding on to that resentment, you will keep struggling to grow your business and your life. And so if you find yourself anywhere near a struggle, because the truth of the matter, and yes, it's a process, but I am a living, breathing example of this. And if this is what I chose or what was chosen for me, you bet your sweet butt I'm in the red dirt of Sedona every day in gratitude. And I am. And I have a gratitude heart up there. Look, and here comes the fireworks. Well, Zoom gets excited when I get excited. But you're harvesting unforgiveness somewhere. And it could be, again, for those of you that believe that you've done this, you've been on a few timelines, you've been in a few experiences, and you can't readily see in this lifetime, then perhaps it's another lifetime. But I have something for you. So get a pen and get some paper, and maybe get this book too, because that would be fun. And Pearl, while I'm saying this, I want to say this out loud. I wrote down something earlier. I'd love to donate some of these books to your nonprofit, because they actually, you could leave them on the bed, like you said, leave them on the bed. They have journal pages in
Oh,
them.
that's amazing. I would love that.
Yeah, after every day. So don't let me forget that.
I won't let you forget it.
But yeah, so here's what I've got for you. So everybody just take a deep breath now. We're just going to take a deep breath. You can close your eyes if you want, and just kind of sit down, anchor in, feet on the ground, feet on the earth, shoulders are soft. Just relax for a minute and take a deep breath. There was a lot of energy that just came out of me. So do it again. Another deep breath. Good. So here we are, pen and paper. So this is how it goes. I forgive myself. I forgive everyone who knows me and everyone I know. Across all timelines and all lifetimes, I am forgiven. I am governed by love and love alone. And now just take another deep breath. I am forgiven. I forgive myself. I forgive everyone I know and everyone who knows me. Across all timelines, across all lifetimes, I am forgiven. I am governed by love and love alone. This very affirmation, this is the truth, this is why it's in both of my books, was a key to unlocking the door to my most abundant and prosperous adventure in ways, Pearl, audience, anybody who's listening, that I could never imagine. Now, you know, at the beginning of the call, that little girl in me wanted freedom. There is a level of freedom that I am experiencing over the last five years that I can't even explain in words sometimes. It's just things move toward me effortlessly, and I'm not boasting, and I'm grateful for every second, and I give freely because I am a miracle and I receive and give miracles all day, every day. But this very affirmation or prayer, and I said it every day, multiple times a day. When I felt anger brew up, when I felt something in me that started, like you said, Pearl, telling Betsy, whatever her name is, when I would feel that voice, that whatever, even judgment, this would come in because I just kept saying it. I taught myself to memorize it. And it really became the power because my words tell my body, and my body responds. And when when I get in deep levels of forgiveness, I come to radical levels of unconditional love from a frequency vibration. It's true. I come to that frequency and vibration, and it opens up my body, because if I'm in fear, I'm not open to see anything or receive anything. Truth be told, if I'm not in fear, if I'm in flow, more things come easily. My life gets easier. And the invitations actually, it just all, and some of you have felt like this, like there's been a miracle that you've seen. Something has come easily to you because you let down your guard. You could do the same thing with gratitude journals. They're really no different. But if you're feeling deep levels of unforgiveness in your body, this is a bold statement that you could just start shifting without seemingly having to do anything. It doesn't cost you anything. It really doesn't cost you any time, maybe 5 seconds of your day. And so what do you have to lose?
I think it's so powerful. I was trying to write it down. It'll be so those that are listening, it'll be in the show notes too. So it'll be there so you can just copy it and paste it there as well. But I think it's definitely is a powerful statement. It reminds me of when I was doing affirmations and I was coaching my clients on doing affirmations. I had a client one time, she's, she wanted more, income, more abundance, money wise in her life. And I was like, she kept saying, Pearl, I came from the world where everybody says, just say I have all the money in the world in my bank account. She goes, but I don't have all the money in the world in my bank account. So how am I supposed to believe it? I'm like, okay, so what if you flip the switch? What if you just said and stood in front of the mirror, wherever you want to journal, write it, whatever, and say, I'm going to take actions today that will lead me to find abundance, that will lead to the abundance I want in my life. She's like, oh, I said, so you're not saying you have all the money in your checking account, but what you are doing is saying, I want to search and I want to be open to receiving it. And therefore it can lead to more income in your life. She's like, oh, that's so different. I could do that. It's like,
And
because she's like, I can't believe if I'm saying I have all the money in my account and I'm looking and barely can pay my bills, I'm not gonna believe it. I'm like, agree with you. So try it differently.
and look for areas in your life that you might have resentment and anger and bitterness. I'm not
Right.
kidding. I mean,
Yeah.
that is a jackpot
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
of whatever it is that you desire, really. More freedom, more time, more money, more quality relationships, more exciting adventures.
Yeah.
Write that, go back to square one, write that forgiveness letter to yourself and just see what comes up.
Yeah.
See what comes up, even kind of, if you like to make it a little out of body experience or a little out of body interview with yourself,
Yeah.
up to that voice that doesn't have anything nice to say and ask that voice, like, okay, what would you forgive? Make it
Right.
playful. I
Yeah.
mean, this is me.
Absolutely.
When I just got on the call with Pearl, I'm like, I spent every ounce, like I walked in 3 minutes before the recording because I just want to be a child on the land.
She wants to be the butterfly, right?
Right, I am. I'm out there chasing butterflies. But get out there, vocalize
Yeah.
it too. If you like to move outside or walk or hike, and you seemingly have some quieter areas where people won't walk by you and say, what does she have? Some kind of Tourette's or something? But say it out loud. I
Yeah.
forgive you. I forgive you. Just be very liberal with that idea. I forgive you. I forgive all of it.
I
And
love it.
tomorrow, I don't know when you'll catch this episode, but if you're anywhere near a full moon, what you talked about, Pearl, you used to write things down and burn them.
Right.
Write that a forgiveness letter and do it with the fire ceremonies, even more powerful.
Oh, 100%. I love that. And this has been
Mhm.
so much fun. I just
Fun.
looked, I'm like, oh my gosh, our time has flown by. So, the power of forgiveness and, we've been talking about, and it truly is truly is like that letting go is that self-healing. And I love that. If you, what the letter is like that big aha, I think I've taken from this. So if you're somebody who's listening to us and want to learn more and want to reach out to Mary about the forgiveness letter, Mary, how does people reach out to you?
Oh, it's so easy to get to me. You can just go to marygooden.com, MaryGooden.com. There's a little pop-up there for you to get a little mini journal of the abundant affirmations, which are also huge in setting ourselves free. So that would be lovely. Yeah. Or anywhere on any platform, it's marygooden.com. Or Mary Gooden. So yeah.
Awesome. And we'll put that in all the show notes where you
Yeah.
can find it. This has been so much fun. So Mary's been on before, so she knows about our cards. So we're going to shuffle the cards again, Mary. And so you're going to tell me when to stop, and then we're going to read your cards. So here we go.
Okay.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Okay. And stop. Ooh, I felt that one in my body.
Yeah. And that one's a dark green one. Look at that
Ooh,
one.
that's the heart chakra. I love that.
Yeah. So it says, what would it be like if it was easy?
Well, it would be just like my life. I'm not kidding. That's why I wrote a book. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. What does this feel like? It feels like life is really always happening for me. I'm not just saying it anymore. When I open my inbox, there are really powerful invitations in there, seemingly of something I just asked for yesterday. I'm constantly people are constantly receiving and giving around me. People are joyous that surround me. And it's true. It's not often that I find that people move towards me or end up in my experiences that have negativity or that are disembodied or just really uncomfortable. And really, Pearl, to what really is coming through right now, tell them this: everything becomes a hell yes, because the only things that seemingly God is showing me are the yeses. No, I can't hear you, Pearl.
I know, I forgot to come off of mute. I'm like, I love it. It's like the yeses, like having those yeses. It's so powerful, and I love your energy. And we're so those that are listening, we're going to talk after this about our retreat that we do every year. Because one of the things I think is we would love to have in our retreat too. But I would just want to thank you again for coming on and for sharing your energy and sharing your wisdom about the power of forgiveness. And I cannot wait to see you in person again, hopefully at Podfest again. I know that's how we originally met, but I just, we'll put everything out there for everybody to reach out to you. But, I just want to remind everybody again, write that letter. Please write the letter. If you do it, if you're on YouTube, make comments below. Tell us how that felt. Reach out to Mary or I and let us know how that powerful that was for you. And if you burned it or didn't burn it, that would be really cool to know as well how that was. But I just want to remind everybody as we close out the show that we come into this world, we're a little rough on the outside. We've got this, roughness that we have to work on. But as you really start working on that inner self and forgiving yourself, you're going to find that inner pearl to greatness. And I can't wait for you to do that. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And thanks for joining us. Oh my gosh, what a fun session we just had with Mary Gooden on talking about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. As Mary said, there's a lot that can happen in our life when we do forgiveness. Like abundance is the big thing that stuck out for me. And then of course the affirmation and the prayer she said to talk about forgiveness, which you'll find in the show notes. It was a beautiful prayer that if you just take a few minutes, like Mary said, I think it's like 5 minutes every morning and said this prayer, it can certainly make a difference to you. Like what can you forgive today? Who can you forgive today? Mostly, how are you going to forgive yourself? But really powerful. How about that forgiveness letter suggestion she talked about? Like writing a letter of forgiveness to you. Writing it to you. What are you forgiving yourself for today? And how are you forgiving yourself? And I'm going to challenge you to write that letter, And like I said, put in the comments here if you're watching on YouTube, or send us a message on the podcast links and so forth, because I'd love to know how that felt for you. But if you're struggling with like where to even start with this forgiveness journey, I want you to know that I'm here for you. And so if you're listening to this today and you want to start on the journey of forgiveness for yourself, I would love to guide you through that with a mini coaching session that we offer on our website. All you have to do, go wsliving.com/Shiro, wsliving.com/Shiro. Grab one of our mini coaching sessions today, because once you do, you will have the journey and the path and the steps to start stepping into your Shiro self, so that you can have more soulful self-care in your life and truly be the Shiro that I know you are, because I know you are strong. I know you can become happier. I know you can be empowered. Show up as that radiant original self that you are when you just start doing some of these steps we're talking about today. So go and have an amazing day and become the Shiro you are today.